is Jesse Chason with Lisa Blanchard as the host of Airing Addiction.
I share often my journey started on this campus. Got sober as a client here, just like you.
I really do see phenomenal change.
Always hope. I've seen situations that on the surface look impossible become possible.
Doing this podcast is to share those recovery stories, be honest about what the challenges are and have some real conversations, but kind of share that out on the airwaves.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Airing Addiction. If you are listening live, it is July. It is the kind of middle of the hot summer. I hope folks have gotten some time to relax and enjoy themselves. Maybe you're listening to this podcast on a beach somewhere or on a nice walk. But here in New England, the weather is absolutely beautiful. And I'm just really excited for this episode. And I'm also excited because we've done something a little different today. So unfortunately, Jesse, my faithful co-host, is not able to be here today. But you may know that one of the things that we really value here on this podcast, of course, is sharing recovery stories and the voice of lived experience. And that's just as important in the co-hosting. So I asked a wonderful guest co-host to join us today, Athena Haddon, who's our Executive Director of Peer and Recovery Support Services at Spectrum and New England Recovery Center. She's been on the podcast before. Feel free to check out her past episodes, really talking about the value of sharing your lived experience and what that can do to change someone's recovery. But I'm just excited to include Athena in this conversation today. So with that, Athena, welcome back to Airing Addiction in this role for you today. And I'd love for you to introduce our fantastic guest today.
Thanks, Lisa. I'm so excited to be here. This is so much fun. I'm really excited to be back here. And I'm really excited to have Billy with us today. I've known Billy for quite some time. William Powers, I know him as Billy. Billy, he's a dedicated recovery coach currently at the Bridge to Hope Peer Recovery Center in Southbridge. He was also working at our Marlboro Recovery Center for some time before we opened. But he brings over 18 years of experience. He has a powerful foundation of lived experience to his role. His personal journey through recovery deeply informs his approach, allowing him to connect with individuals on a meaningful level and offer authentic, empathetic support. Billy is trained in restoration justice, which I just love that, recovery coaching, alternatives to violence, nurturing fathers, and engaging at-risk youth. His lived experience combined with professional training enables him to guide others with insight, compassion, and credibility, helping them navigate the complexities of recovery and personal transformation. In addition, he's been in his coaching work. He's a published author and a committed community advocate, and I say that with a big A. He is the founder and the president of Crossing Rubicon, and a self-development program designed to help individuals overcome personal barriers and achieve lasting growth. He also serves as a board member for 2 nonprofit organizations, reflecting his ongoing dedication to creating positive change in the lives of others. I'm so thrilled to have you here today, Billy. This is great. Yeah, so I don't know. We want to just hear from you now, and all this. You're doing great work. I've seen it in action, so I would love to hear others learn about it too.
Yeah, how did you get here? How did you, that was a long list of some amazing work that you're doing to support others. But I have to imagine that there has been a long road to get you to this place, right? To enable you to support that many people in so many ways. So do you want to share a little bit about how you got to this place and then what you're doing now?
My journey isn't much different than most people, in active addiction. My addictions was alcohol mainly, but a lot of people seem to forget that one of the biggest addictions is the lifestyle, right? So for me, being out there, being in clubs, being in the streets, all that excitement, all of those things was my biggest addiction. And I think that gets pushed aside and we just look at the substances. So I was highly addicted to being in the streets, running around, doing my thing. And when I finally made that decision to cross over and start wanting more for my life, wanting more for the people who cared about me, I decided to start doing better, right? And it was small increments. It didn't happen overnight. I started going to programs while incarcerated. I spent 22 years incarcerated. And during that journey, I started doing small programs like alternative to violence. And I loved it. You know, I loved the way it brought the community together. I spoke to people that I normally would have never spoken to. And I learned some techniques about dealing with my frustration and my anger. So then I kept going through the trainings, ended up becoming a facilitator, ran dozens of groups. In that, I started going to another program called Project Youth, where we dealt with at-risk youth. And that really transformed the way I saw what was going on in the community. These young kids coming in and some of the issues that they had. So it was really where I wanted to work, was with youth and individuals who were struggling the way I did. You know, I tried many years ago, back in the 90s, to enter into recovery. They didn't really call it recovery back then. It was like abstinence. I ended up going to Project Turnabout, and when it was in Hingham, and graduated that program, but I really didn't get it. I really didn't understand what was really going on with me, because back then it was always AA, NA. This is what it is. Just put it down. You'll be fine. I put the drinking down. I wasn't fine. I was still messed up. I was still broken. I was stressed. I was depressed. I was angry. And they kept telling me, and sometimes they still use this. They'll say, the substances is a symptom, right? And I understood that in part, but I look at it a little different today. I look at it as, it's not just a symptom. It's actually my drinking was a solution, right? Because I was so depressed. I was so angry. I was so anxious that when I drank, that went away. It was like having a headache. You take an aspirin, the headache goes away, right? So the aspirin is the solution. Might not be the right solution because you could have a tumor, right? But it's in the moment, it's a solution. So I realized that this solution, although helped me, I need to find another solution. And that's where, like, it just changed in my mind of how I approached my recovery, right? That the substance is helping you, but it's also destroying you. So it's helping with one thing, but taking away from many other aspects of your life. And I realized that it was all behind self-development. I never learned coping skills on how to deal with stress, how to deal with anger, how to deal with depression, how to deal with trauma. I didn't know any of those things. And I wasn't learning those things just going into the halls. I thought the halls were going to be a cure-all, right? I'll go into the halls, I'll hear something, I'll be fine. Realized that there has to be a whole lot more work. I didn't realize that recovery is about those underlying issues. You know what I mean? Peeling back those layers and getting to the bottom of it and healing, you know. And it wasn't until I really, really put my pride away and my ego away and started facing some of the demons that I had. And once I began to do that, it really helped me out. It helped me out in amazing ways. Way back when I was still incarcerated, I knew that I wanted to work in the recovery field. Everything that I learned in all of these groups and programs, I wanted to give it away because I knew that just putting down the substance was not enough, right? Because we're still unhappy, we're still angry, we're still upset, we're still struggling. But if I could help with the other stuff, what trauma looks like, childhood trauma looks like, and all of these things, then just maybe they'll have a better chance at moving forward. So I started, while I was still incarcerated, started my own programs in there because I seen a gap between the programs that were going on there, which some of them was amazing programs, and some of the things that was missing, especially, like I said, the part of lifestyle that wasn't being taught or shown in some of the programs I was in. So we designed our own program, me and a great friend of mine, Clarence Williams, who we designed a program in there and then come out here and started another program. But we look at things sometimes in a simplistic way, right? And it's really not, because everybody's an individual, and that's how I approach everybody. As an individual, I never go into thinking I know what they need, because I know I don't. We all have different paths, different journeys that got us to where we are. Some things work, some things don't. When I first come out of incarceration, I was unsure of where I was going to work in the recovery field. I just knew that that's what I wanted to do. And I went to the Dismas House in Worcester, and a good friend of mine, Carmen, she was a director at Marlboro Recovery Connection. And I reached out to her because I knew she was in the field and doing well. And she was like, why don't you come down and volunteer? So I came down, started volunteering, immediately fell in love with the whole peer center and the way they deal with individuals. It was just amazing. The community that I found there was something that I never experienced before. And I knew right then I caught the bug. I knew this is where I want to work. I want to work in the peer field. Just the approach, the way you can talk to people, the different ideas you heard. I didn't know a whole lot about different pathways going in, but hearing them from different people made me want to learn more. So I studied more, I learned more, I went to all the different meetings, and I can't imagine myself working in another area other than peer. And Spectrum has been amazing, giving me the opportunity to work in this field, because that's one of the barriers that a lot of us, we don't get second chances. A lot of times people will say second chances, but nobody wants to take that chance, right? It's like, you deserve a second chance. I'm just not going to give it to you. And Spectrum did that for me. They gave me that opportunity to show what I can do, to feel human, to feel like I matter, right? And that is a really, really big part of re-entering into society, right? Because for many years, like I said, I spent 22 years, and to get out and have people embrace you and really see you, it changes. It makes you want to do better. It makes you feel good about yourself. And that goes with what we try to do. And that's build up self-esteem, right? Because I always say, if you love yourself, you don't hurt yourself. And a lot of times we'll say that we love ourselves, but we really don't, right? We're stuck in this thing where we beat ourselves up. And I just try to be there as a support to let them know that they're worthy and their lives are worthy. But yeah, I always say we're warriors in recovery, because it's a battle. It's a battle out there, and it's not easy. But we have to understand other people's needs, and not try to put our beliefs onto them. And I think that that's a very difficult thing to do, because we want to help, right? We want to go in and say, no, listen, this is going to help you. This is going to fix it. I got all your problems. I understand it, but this is what you need to do. That is hard to reel that in and not be able to do that, And another thing I think I really liked about, Spectrum offering me this position in the peer field was the way I grew up, where I grew up in South Boston. I had a real huge mistrust of anybody in an authoritative position. It didn't matter if they were right. I didn't want to hear anything they had to say. But coming into the peer field, there is none of that, right? That structure is removed. So you walk in with an open mind, you walk in with an open heart. And obviously everybody walking in that first time is a little nervous. They don't know what to expect. I know I was, but they soon realized that they're here doing the same thing you are. They struggle the same battles you struggled. And also the peer centers allowed me to put people over paper, right? I'm there. I'm in there with them. I'm sitting down with them. I'm drinking coffee with them. I'm hanging out with them. I'm getting to know them on an intimate, personal level that I probably couldn't in another area. So Spectrum has helped amazingly. They helped crossing the Rubicon with a grant that did so much already. It actually, part of that grant is being utilized to buy a whole group of children sneakers for back to school. And some of these families can't afford the new sneakers. They'll get them their new sneakers, but maybe a bill might get cut. Maybe something might get pushed back. But this is going to relieve some of these parents' stress that they don't have to worry about buying their kids new sneakers for back to school. And that's something we did with the Community Impact Grant. We wanted to give back to not just us, but also the children, because these children are suffering too. They're in it. These children are highly impacted by this disease. And sometimes I think they get forgotten, right? They get left to the side, and because we figure, oh, they're resilient, but all the trauma they're going through now is a result later on.
That's such a full circle sentence, right? Because you shared that like some of the things that played into your addiction story and the things that you needed to address, right, are kind of those things that happen to us when we're young, the environments that we're in, what happens to us. And a lot of the work that we did for many years in the addiction field, like just didn't look at that, right? They like looked at this, here's your path. Here's what you need to do. If you just follow this and you just do this exactly how I tell you, right, then you'll be all right. And, and as a treatment professional, as a therapist, like we all did this, right? And we did it with like a caring heart, right? But we didn't recognize like that you really need to let people figure out what their own pathway is and recognize how those things that have happened to us actually have contributed. And we need to talk about those things. We need to look at that whole person, right? We've said it on this podcast a million times. It's a really common saying, but it's just so relevant, right? There's not one way in and there's not one way out. And, really, I just appreciate your perspective. And a couple of things I want to reflect on, and then I'll let Athena do so, is I'm always amazed about the connections that folks that I love when they work for us, like you are, and doing such amazing work, have to Spectrum, like Project Turnabout, like in Hingham. That was a long time ago. We've come a really long way as a field since there, right? Like it's really impactful to me. But what also strikes me is 22 years incarcerated, right? That is such a challenging space to move from, and to see where you are now is really just unbelievable, because you go from this environment of like somebody telling you what to do all day, every day, so much authority, right? So much systems that really aren't there to be seen as a human, right? And so a lot of the words I'm kind of reflecting back to you because they're so impactful, that as soon as you were able to be seen, right, be viewed exactly how you are, then that's where real change, happens. And now you're able to take that perspective and give it to others is really just amazing to me. So those were kind of some of my first reflections, but I really just appreciate how much you shared.
Thank you. Yes. I think long-term incarceration could go different ways. It wasn't my first incarceration, unfortunately. Like I said, lifestyle was my biggest addiction, way worse than anything else I ever did. And I think the misconception people have is that prison rehabilitates, right? It doesn't. It does. There's nothing of prison that is rehabilitative, right? They don't understand trauma when it comes to that, and they don't understand the continuous trauma that happens during incarceration. Losing people, watching violence, like all of these things that transpire. We tend to forget that it's just re-traumatizing people, right? So there is no space for them to give you rehabilitation, right? Because it's about security. And I feel from my first incarceration, the incarceration only exacerbated all my traumas. They only made them worse. You're on survival mode the whole time, right? Every day you get up, whether it's go to the bathroom, go to the shower, go to the phone, everything's survival mode. So it's really hard to let your guard down and say, you know what, I'm going to heal from this trauma that has led me to prison to begin with. But yet my every day, my every waking moment is in survival mode. It's no different than when we're in the street. Those who do become rehabilitated, it's not because of the institution. It's because they have found a circle or a space where they can almost steal their rehabilitation. I was fortunate. I met a circle of individuals that started their journey right around the time I did. And so we bounced a lot of things off each other, helped each other, held each other accountable. That was a big thing, right? Holding each other accountable when one would do something, the other ones would speak up. That was very big for us. And doing it in a loving, caring way, not a disrespectful and authoritative way, like you need to do this, you need to do that. No, just checking in like, yo, my brother, what's going on today? Are you okay? That made a difference than approaching it from a way where you need to do this, you need to act this way, you need to stop, or punishment. Punishment, as we know, it works in certain ways, but having that hand, you know what I'm saying? Being like, yo, I got you, goes so much further. It makes you want to do better. You're not doing it because you're afraid of the consequences. You do it because you want to, and people believe in you. And that perspective changes. And I think that's what helped me. And preparing, like I was fully prepared prior to my release of what I wanted to do. So when I hit the ground, I already knew the steps that I wanted to take. I already knew I wanted to go into recovery coach training. I already knew that I want to be certified in restorative justice. Like I already knew these things. So once I came home, and Dismiss accepted me, I already knew what I needed to do. So from day one, that was my approach. That's the way I went. And I didn't look back.
Amazing. So the things that you're saying there also really strike me, right? Because the environment that you're in does not create psychological safety. We cannot grow if we don't have that safety. So you had to create it for yourself with others that came together in a traumatizing environment to create a space of safety that would allow you to heal and grow. And I just love the symmetry of you knowing that that's what helped me here. And that's what I want to do when I leave, right? Is create those spaces, which is exactly what a peer recovery support center does, right?
Yeah.
It creates that environment, that sense of safety that can be in the whole building, right? Instead of just in a small circle that you created with those that you were working with to support each other. It's really, really powerful.
Yeah, I figure in my mind that if some of these things helped in that space out here, it's tenfold, right? Here at Bridge to Hope, it's a small community, small town, amazing people. In the center is it's the hub for that, right? People are coming in, they're happy, they're smiling. I've seen the changes in some of the people, even whole families. We have whole families that come here together, and it's just amazing the support that they give to each other. Husband and wife. The husband's in recovery, the wife is not, and she's here all the time. And it's just truly amazing to watch individuals grow and that connection that they get. And because when we get into recovery, when we get out of that old life, it's lonely, right? It's a lonely space. Sometimes we go into a program or a hall or meetings, and there's people there, right? But sometimes they're either from different areas that we're not around, or they're on a different level of recovery, right? And so we're intimidated by what they have. So it's kind of hard to make that really close connection. We'll make connections, we'll trade phone numbers, but to make that intimate connection is just different. And in the peer recovery centers like here, it's different. And they're able to lean on each other and call each other and get rides from each other and go to dinner with each other and really make close bonds and friendships and hold each other accountable in a loving way. And that's why I can't imagine myself not being in the peer field. And even with our organization, we approach it the same way. We train facilitators that look like the individuals that we're dealing with, right? Some of our facilitators are very young. One of them's 22 years old. We find that that's important when we go into schools and we go into different areas. Our approach is, I don't want to say different, other people do it, but it's different than what I've known in the past, what I have experienced. I always wanted to get away from the individuals that were there to try to help me, right? Because I felt like they were watching over me and everything I do is going to be under a microscope and I'm going to be judged for it. And in this environment, you're not. Like, everybody has done different things and struggled in different areas, and it's just different. And I love it.
And there's no hierarchy, right? There's no,
Yes.
there's not even in a multiple pathway approach, right? We're not counting days, weeks, years, right? Like we're not putting people at different levels depending on where they are. You are where you are. And it really is a very different approach.
Yes. And even here, right? I know a lot of people love coins, right? That's a big part of some areas. So we got coins, and I know you probably won't be able to see it, but we got these coins, but they don't count days. And people love this. And right on the front of it, it says "Never Alone Again."
Love that.
And this is a symbol of that. You're never alone again. Like, you never have to be. We got you. We're here for you. And that's it. It's an amazing field. It's hard at times. It's stressful at times. It's heart-wrenching at times. It's not always easy. Seeing the ups of people's lives is always great. But unfortunately, the nature of the beast, sometimes we lose people, and that's really, really difficult when that happens. You have to become a little more vigilant, so that people don't tap out. Because sometimes it's like, well, this person was in recovery for 10 years and, we lost them. So why should I continue? It's about being there and tapping in and making sure they're all right. That's more important than any curriculum or paperwork or anything else we could possibly give an individual. It's love and care. That's way more important.
It's awesome, Billy. You got a great story. And I see you around the state doing so much. I've been to so many things around the state where they're doing advocacy work, either through more other organizations. And when I get there's Billy, and I'm like, he's just really, really advocating for so much throughout the state. Something that stuck out for me is when you were talking about the multiple pathways and things like that. And, prior systems really, until I went through the Recovery Coach Academy and I learned about how we treat individuals as resources, right? And not objects or recipients. Like, everywhere I ever went prior to learning this, I always felt like I was treated like an object or a recipient. It was like, what do you need? And what can I do for you? You know what I mean? And I felt like in systems, in jail or in recovery treatment facilities. Like there was a lot of things I couldn't do for myself. I couldn't do it without my case manager, or I couldn't do it without my, whoever I was seeing in the prison, the social workers or whatever they have. And, so, and then in this peer world, it's like, it was, I don't know, it was like I was being treated as a recipient, I'm sorry, as a resource in my own recovery, So that's kind of like what we do at the recovery centers, which I just love that. We really meet people where they're at, but we don't leave them where they're at.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. I agree. I definitely agree. Me and Clarence, whenever we speak to people, to individuals, especially when we're doing groups or classes, we always say, we're going to have a conversation because I'm going to learn just as much, if not more, from you than you could possibly learn from us. And because we believe in that. We believe in that approach. Another thing we always say, and we talk about it around here a lot, is talk to people, not at people.
Right.
Make them feel important, make them feel like they count, because they do. And again, just like you pointed out, my past was similar. My experience was similar. They pull out something. It was a checklist. Did you try AA? Did you try NA?
Yeah.
You need to go to counseling, AA 3 times a week. And then that's pretty much it. That's your map.
Yeah.
Whether you agree with it, you don't agree with it, that's your map. That's what's going to get you clean. That's what's going to get your life on track. And I was afraid of that. I'll be honest. I remember thinking about going into recovery and going to some meetings here and there. And somebody would say that they've been abstinent for 10 years and the individual was completely miserable, angry, and I'm like, I might also just stay where I'm at. Like, I don't want to be 10 years sober at, what they used to say back then, and angry, right?
Yeah.
And why was that? Because I would have been angry because I didn't deal with my underlying issues, right? I didn't deal with my trauma. I didn't deal with my anger issues. I didn't deal with any of that. So I would have been the same person, just not drinking, right? And I didn't want that. I needed more for myself. And you know what? The people who cared about me and loved me deserved more than that from me.
And that's that difference, right, between abstinence and recovery. And, recovery centers, I always say this is where recovery happens, right? Like and I'm a therapist, right? I think therapy is helpful, but only if you want to do it, only if you're using it to work on what you want to work on, right? Instead of it being some kind of prescribed requirement of some kind. Like nobody grows in that space, right? So you can grow in therapy, but only if you want to. And it just, it makes me think a little bit about how you were really talking about the addiction to the lifestyle, right? And that's so tied to identity development and so tied to like what I believe about myself and what's important to me and what matters to me. And it's hard to give up that all of those pieces of yourself and find a different way, right? And find, a new identity in recovery. And that's scary, right? And I think we don't talk about that enough. We like put it in too much black and white, right or wrong. You're either using or you're not. And instead of like really just recognizing that, even as you described it, right? Like substances, really were there to take care of you. They did something for you, right? Like there was a reason. Nobody does things just to be miserable. And, you get something from it. So recognizing what that was helps you figure out other ways to support yourself, right? To have that self-compassion, to care for yourself differently.
Very, very important, dealing with those, because they're coping skills, right? We're using because it's a coping mechanism, right? And it works, right? It's not that it doesn't destroy us. It does destroy us, but at the same time, it works, right? It makes us forget. It makes us feel better. It erases everything that's going on in our lives in the moment, right? But also there's repercussions behind that, right? And so if we view it in a way where we understand that it is a solution, it's their solution, whether you agree with the solution or you don't agree with it, it's their solution. And so the approach that I had to take for myself was, this is my solution. What other solutions can I find? Right? Because if you were like me, I started very young, 13 years old. Right? So, and people talk about rehabilitation, right? If you look at the word rehabilitate, it's, to bring back to the way it once was. Well, I was always messed up. So what are you bringing me back to? Like, I had to learn, communication skills. I had to learn listening. I didn't want to hear anybody, right? You couldn't tell me nothing. I knew it all at 12, 13 years old. I had the whole world figured out. So coming out of prison at 51 years old, I'm learning life, right? Yeah, I started it while in prison, but that's an unnatural environment. It's not the same. It's an unnatural environment. So I'm trying to learn coping skills in an unnatural environment. What people fail to realize, unless they've been incarcerated, is that prison is one of the only places where it's you're a great guy for being dysfunctional. You're rewarded for dysfunction, right? If I put my hands on somebody, or I'm aggressive, or all of these things, I'm rewarded by that, right? And if you don't do any of that, people begin to look at you like you're a victim, right? So trying to balance that is very difficult. So when I came home, I'm still learning. I've been home a little over 2 years. I'm still learning how to live life. I'm still learning how to deal in social circles. I'm still learning how to have relationships and trusting people and, being vulnerable. I was never capable of vulnerability, never, ever in my life. And now, in order for me to be healthy, I have to be. Yeah. And getting hurt and feeling pain is feeling alive. Right. And I never wanted to feel those things. I never wanted to feel pain. I never wanted to, and I hid from them. So I either shut people out or I drank because I didn't want to feel. But now feeling for me is living. It's being alive. I'm not existing anymore.
And vulnerability in prison environments and in lots of community, right, is not safe. Right. And so, you can't allow yourself to be, but that also means that in order to be seen, right, you described that so well, like being seen requires vulnerability, right, to let somebody actually see you. And so it's a hard shift, right, because you've had so many layered years of, traumatic environments and trauma and things that have told you this isn't safe, right? So the way the brain works, the way our bodies work, like it feels really unsafe to be vulnerable and to do that. And so you have to actively kind of slowly get comfortable with that and then see how that feels. And that's not an easy task, right? And some folks never get there, right? As you described, some folks that might be, abstinent, might be, quote unquote, sober, but not actually in recovery, and recovery requires that work to look at kind of what's happening kind of under the hood, like what's happening there, what's going on there. And that's the real difference. And I say it all the time. I've said it to Athena so many times, right? That like so many of us that haven't had to face addiction could continue to going on being the miserable, terrible humans we might be, right? And never look at it. And just never look under the hood, just keep being miserable, keep causing harm, keep doing those things. And when folks really work towards recovery and do the work in recovery, you're required to look at all that, right? So you're actually in a much different space than the rest of us, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. And I think talking about being addicted to things other than just substances, some people are addicted to negativity. Mm-hmm. It releases their energy. It makes them feel, and they're just negative all the time. And they're addicted to it, right? They wake up, they're complaining. They go to bed, they're complaining. All day long, they're complaining. And we all go through it, right? But there's healthy ways of complaining, and then that just being your character. And some people just don't know how to get out of that cycle. And that's another thing we try to help with too, is try not to be so negative. It's not bad to be smiling and be happy every now and then.
Billy, I'm really impressed with some of the work you're doing with the youth and how important working with youth is to you.
Yeah.
I know that you did some work with a group called I think it's Stars of the Future. Is
Yeah.
that the group? And
Yeah.
and I see on Facebook at the Bridge to Hope Facebook page, you guys have done some great work around the
Yeah.
youth. Can you talk a little bit about what's happening with that group of folks and
Yeah. So, Stars of the Future is an amazing organization out here in Southbridge that is a development youth program for children and their parents. You know, their parents get resources as well as the children. But on the children's side of things, they have a teacher that comes in to help them with their homework, to help them learn new skills. You know, she's a certified teacher, works in the school system, and she volunteers her time to come in with the kids. We have youth coordinators, you know, that whole peer system. I love it. It works well where these kids can go to their peers who can help them navigate some of the issues that they go through. And we have a lot of fun, right? We do a lot of things. We did a carnival a couple weeks ago where we had dunk tanks and bouncy houses and all of that stuff. And that's great. And it gives them that space. But also, just from me working with this organization and seeing the kids grow in the mentoring that goes on is truly amazing, right? It gives these children a space outside of hanging on the corner, hanging on the streets, getting in trouble. And they really love being around individuals, being mentored, and watching these kids really come out of themselves about personal things that are going on in their lives helps us help the whole entire family, because we believe that it's an entire unit. Although we're focused on the kids during that space, our ultimate goal is to help the entire family. When that unit's healthy, then they're all healthy. Like I said, Crossing the Rubicon is getting them, you know, backpacks and sneakers and everything for them to go back to school. I even let them at one point in time paint my head for Easter. So yes, I looked like I had a helmet on. I let the group of kids all paint my head. I had flowers and all kinds of stuff. But there's not much I won't do for the kids, including lending my head instead of an egg for them to paint.
That is fantastic.
And yeah, the organization's amazing. It's ran by Yvonne and Miguel, who are really, really passionate about giving to these kids, and they do it all the time. They do a little bit out in Springfield. They had a boxing gym for a little while. They lost that, but they're trying to, you know, grow, and they're trying to get more and more children off the street, and it's really important for them to have that space, that safe space. And we teach them about all kinds of things, gangs, recovery, what, you know, the differences you know, when it comes to drug use in different substance uses. We try to teach them the differences, right? Because we don't. We just showed a video last week about substance use, and obviously we had to put a disclaimer before and after, because the last thing I wanted to do is one of these kids go home and they see their dad with a beer or their mom with a glass of wine, and they're like, "You're an alcoholic," right? So we had to talk about the differences, the way it looks, right? There's prescribed medications, and there's things that are legal, and then there's, you know, when you misuse something and what those things look like. And then we had questionnaire at the end of it. They don't really like the questionnaires, but it gives us a guide of what they were able to take in. And we found that was really important. I'm kind of, when it comes to those young ages, I kind of just give them little seeds instead of trying to just bombard them with all the information. They got young minds, and their attention spans are really short, especially nowadays.
Yeah.
But it's an amazing, amazing organization. I love being a part of it. And like I said, Yvonne and Miguel do a great job with these children and giving to them. You know, they just started. They decorated a box yesterday. It's called, I actually have it in my office. It's called, I don't know if you can see it. No,
it's not
they
coming
won't
in.
allow it. It says needs for stars. And so it's going to be a box in case one of the kids need food. Maybe they need underwear and socks or hygiene products or whatever that is. And they can put that request in the box and nobody will know that they're asking for it. But our approach is a little different because what we're going to do is everybody's going to write on the cards, whether it's an affirmation, something nice to say or whatever, and put it in the box. So they won't know which child is putting in a need or what child is just putting in something nice to say. So they don't have to be embarrassed. They don't have to be ashamed. And we can help them. And we
That's so
found that
great.
that's really
I
important.
love that approach. Like, I love that, everybody puts something in. And so it just removes that shame and that guilt and the things that kind of come in family systems. And I love the approach of, impacting the whole family system, right? On the treatment side, we tend to do the exact opposite. We care about the parent in front of us and we don't even necessarily view them as a parent, right? We've done lots of episodes about looking about that differently. We've done a lot of work in our programs to do that differently, right? But if we have to do both sides, right? Support the kids so that it helps the family and support the parents that might be working towards, or trying to enter recovery so that you can support the kids, right? Like it has to be both. And I love the symmetry of the way you described your youth in some ways, right? I have to imagine that's where that addiction to the lifestyle started. And you're directly combating that right now with the work that you're doing, right? Like showing kids different ways other than that lifestyle that they can find joy, that they can find happiness, that they can find connection and support, right? So that they don't go down that path, hopefully, of kind of, getting connected to that lifestyle as, what feels important to them.
Yes, definitely. It's really important. Like I said, an ignored youth today can be potentially a huge problem tomorrow. I have a quote in my book, and it says, "A child not embraced by its village will burn it down to feel its warmth."
Wow.
Right? I put that in my book because that's how I grew up. I felt unseen, unheard, unloved. And so, you know what? I was extremely destructive. I was destructive in ways that didn't make sense. I look back at some of the things I did, and I'm not even talking about just individuals, like property, just different things. I was just very, very destructive because I was angry and I didn't know what was going on inside of me. I didn't understand. And back then in the 70s and 80s, we didn't understand childhood trauma. They'll be fine. They'll bounce back. Children are resilient. They'll be okay. We know now that that's not true. There's enough studies out there to know that all of those things that happen to a child when they're young, they carry into adulthood. So it's investing in these children today is going to have a huge impact on tomorrow. And I find it important. Like I said, Stars of the Future is an amazing organization, but it's one organization. We need a whole lot more of these. We need to support these small youth organizations. It's hard. There's a bunch. Some of them are not on the up and up, and that's okay too. But we can't turn our backs on all of them just because certain individuals are not doing what they're supposed to. But I see that sometimes there's a lack in the support, and everybody wants children to be healthy. Everybody wants children to do better and live better, but nobody wants to put their time and effort in it. It's like, all right, it's somebody else's problem. It's not my child. But you know what? A lot of times it is their child. They just learned how to manipulate and hide it better.
And we're all connected, right? So it might not be your child, but it does impact you.
Or your children, right? So you won't help that. Let's say you don't help that other youth, right? Your child may end up hanging with that other youth, right? And getting himself in trouble or becoming a victim of that other youth who's angry and hurt and unheard and unseen and feels like they have no agency. So they're going to just take it out on the world. So it impacts all children. And that's our approach here at the center. We try to deal with all the family, right? Not just the individual who may be in recovery, but their families, their friends, because also there's individuals who are in recovery, but their family doesn't understand. They don't understand it. Why don't you just stop, knock it off? If you love me enough, you would stop this behavior. We encourage them to come in. We encourage them to come in, meet people, hang out, sit in the groups, sit in the meetings, because we think if they learn more about their loved one and what they're going through and the journey and the path that they've taken, they'll have a little more understanding, be able to support in a better way, and just have a better outcome.
Yeah, that's so valuable. That's why we run family support meetings on Zoom every Wednesday night, right? And we just do it, right? We don't get anything from that. Like that's not, it's just it doesn't have to be our patients. It could be anybody. We've had people from out of the country join, right? Across the country join, because it matters, right? To get actually real information about what addiction is and how to support your loved one while supporting and caring for yourself. Like it's back to that family system, right? If we can take care of the whole unit, then everybody does better. And if we don't take care of that environment and those that folks are going back to in their recovery spaces, then they're just going to have the same challenges. And there'll be that lack of support and understanding and that continued shame, right? Both for the family and for the individual. Really amazing. I don't have enough words to say what you have accomplished in the last 2 years. Obviously we'll stay connected because we are, so I feel very blessed to have you in our peer recovery support center in Southbridge. But I'm also just, personally really interested to see what more you do, right? If you can do this much in 2 years, right? Let's stay connected. We'll probably have you back on to keep talking about what you're doing.
I'll let you know because Crossing the Rubicon is about to be, we're going to present at the International Gang Intervention Convention in Chicago next week. We're going to be a panel there talking about lived experience and how peer-to-peer helps individuals develop and can help remove these children from the gangs.
Oh, that's so fantastic.
Awesome. Come along. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Well, we could keep going all day, quite honestly, but for the sake of our listeners who might only be on a nice drive or a walk for a short time, we'll go ahead and end it here. But it's certainly not a goodbye. It's a see you soon. I've really enjoyed this conversation. You're really doing such amazing work in supporting others that are doing amazing work, and your perspective really is amazing, and it matters. And the ripple effect of what you're doing individually and what you're doing in organizations will probably be felt for years to come. So
I hope so.
Athena, thanks so much for joining us as a guest.
Fun. Yeah. Thank you.
This was very, very fun. So I guess that's our episode of Airing Addiction. So, we are planning some really exciting episodes coming up, so August, we will likely do something to recognize overdose awareness and the challenges that come with that. But then we get to shift our focus in a different way in September because that's Recovery Month. And so reminders to our listeners that we do weekly episodes in Recovery Month instead of monthly to really celebrate recovery and all the aspects of it. So Jesse, James, and I are planning those episodes. So subscribe, do all those podcasty things. And thank you so much, Billy. This was really been
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Athena. Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks so much.
You.
See you all soon. Bye now.
Take care.